All right, moving on. Budget 2025 was presented a few weeks ago, and one of the key takeaways from that was proposed doubling credit guarantees from the MSMEs and customized credit cards for micro enterprises as well. Steps like these have compounded by the Government of India's push for Make in India and startups puts banks in a very interesting position. So we thought, let's sit down with the DBS Bank's Managing Director and Head of Global Transaction Services, SME and Institutional Liability Business, Divyesh Dalal, to understand this outlook. He joins us now. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Dalal. Now, the Budget 2025 has revised the classification for MSMEs, proposed doubling credit guarantees as well to about 10 crores and customized, almost the credit cards for micro enterprises. How will these measures impact small business owners, and especially in the non-metros?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks Sonal for having me on the show, and good morning viewers. So I think as most of us would have gone through the finer details of the budget, it's clearly a fantastic one for the MSME sector, as you would have seen. Clearly the government has really stepped up on the pedal, if I can use those words, to kind of help the MSME sector. Obviously, the first one is increasing the credit guarantee to 10 crores. But the big one, in my view, is the whole reclassification piece, right? And the reclassification piece actually helps the MSMEs, a larger set of MSMEs, get into the Samadhan one, right? Which is basically getting paid within 45 days. Yeah. And even the subsidy for the tech side in terms of enhancement, right? The subsidy that the government is going to provide. So I think both these are most critical from a reclassification perspective. So I think that's going to be a big flip. The 10 crore piece on the credit guarantee one obviously is a great one, but also for first time entrepreneurs, these are a good piece that they would basically give a 2 crore credit guarantee also. So I think these three things, in my view, are basically a big flip, and banks obviously will step up now and see how they can also facilitate, right? Because in addition to this, as you know, there is increased allocation on the credit guarantee for startups to 20 crores and also the export oriented units. So I think if you look at all of these in aggregation, it's just fantastic, right? I mean, if you're an MSME and you want support and you're exporting also, I think it's great time, right? There is government support and there are banks which are going to step in and you're going to have factoring services. So all of that, I think if you sum it up, it's a good place to be right now in my view.
Good place to be in. But what about R&D? Let's talk about that a little bit. The government has announced initiatives for R&D and proposed export promotion mission as well to boost export credit. Do you think this will help make India and the Indian MSMEs more globally competitive? And DBS Bank, for example, it has a very developed Asia network. What role can it play in helping MSMEs to tap into these regional supply chains?
So I think, so as I said earlier, I think a couple of things. First is just the credit guarantee support, really will kind of help the MSMEs. And obviously the government drive in terms of, enhancing the infrastructure, also kind of pushing the R&D pedal. I think that's going to be very critical in terms of getting the MSMEs a little more competitive in the marketplace. But from a DBS lens, I could state a couple of things, right? So the first one is, our Asia network, right? That's pretty strong, and our connectivity across key Asian markets where the MSMEs export and import both. I think those will really help us kind of connect the exporters in India. In addition to that, we have a digital platform which enables the exporter also to kind of submit documents digitally as well as even seek financing. Like I mentioned earlier, I think factoring, in my view, is going to be one of the key elements, right? And it's not just financing. Factoring doesn't enable you financing. Actually, it helps you sell more. So if you look at it from that lens, if there's an exporter in Kakinada who wants to sell to a buyer in Eastern Europe, that's where we'll come to play, right? So you actually open a new market for the exporter. So I think a couple of these things will really drive the export side very well. And obviously there are enablers around, the 20 crore facility that's going to be given is for working capital. So this is on top of the, the ECGS facility, right? So I think there is enough for the exporter, but what DBS brings to the table is a network and also factoring services digitally, which will help them actually sell more. And I feel the last one is a key one. That's the one which will hit the ball out of the park in my view.
Yeah, you're right. But Mr. Dalal, you can get in financing, you can get in the network with banks like yours. But one thing that really pulls down is paperwork. Now, while Bharat TradeNet promises streamlined trade documentation, small exporters often struggle with the compliance costs and global competition, right? And further, MSMEs can also sometimes find new technology very overwhelming. Can banks like DBS, which are known to have very digitally advanced networks, help entrepreneurs leverage these digital platforms, even unlock some cross-border opportunities?
No, absolutely. So I think, the couple of things that, we've done at our end, and some of it has really helped us even 4 years back when COVID hit, right? So we have a very good, robust, scalable supply chain platform, which actually helped even, smaller suppliers get on the platform at COVID times. And you would agree, right? In COVID times, you couldn't have paper getting to the branch. There were restrictions around movement. So you needed the digital platform to actually enable, financing to be given to the MSMEs as well as the large buyers. So I think our platform is quite robust. We have it going on for the last 5 years, and there are more than 150 large anchors on it, close to 10,000 odd suppliers. So I think our ability to kind of scale up leveraging that platform is fantastic. The other piece that I'd like to mention out here is, like you mentioned, the paperless piece. There is this DigiDocs platform that DBS has, wherein we have the ability to actually obtain the documents that are submitted at branches. We can obtain it digitally on the platform, and even the interaction is done digitally with the exporter. So the exporter needn't come to the branch, but they can actually get to know the status of the transaction online itself. So I think that's the second piece, which is fantastic. And the third one is we actually leveraging the GSTN portal to validate the e-way bill number, right? So I think it's important for all of us, especially the lending institutions, to leverage some of these platforms to see how you can authenticate the validity or the underlying invoice for which financing is sought. How can you authenticate that digitally rather than taking the paper document? And I think leveraging the GSTN platform is just the best piece, right? So now we have the ability wherein we can actually validate with the GSTN portal because we're connected with them through APIs. And basis that we can actually disperse loans or working capital facility to the MSMEs probably in minutes, right? Which earlier would require them to come into the branch, give documents, wait for it to get cleared, and then the credit would be given to the bank account. So I think once you start leveraging some of these data points which are available, I think it'll just be fantastic. So I think these three, in addition to the network, will help us kind of push the whole digital agenda, for which last 5 years we've been really driving it, and we've been quite successful in the market, in my view. So I think there is a lot of space out here for us to kind of go ahead and build out on our digital prowess and help customers go digital also.
Okay, let's shift our focus to startups for a minute there. The 10,000 crore fund of funds targets startups, but we know that many young businesses can fail due to challenges with cash flow. How can banks supplement the funding stack, and does DBS have any specific measures to encourage startups?
Yeah, so as you would know, we actually have a $250 million specific allocation towards funding of startups. Now this is like the bank has decided that look, the startups are a key element in the entire ecosystem, and we clearly believe that they will enable us to even go digital, right? So I think that's the first piece. So we clearly have a big commitment out there. Second is, in addition to the commitment, we've got a separate group within the bank. It's called a digital economy group, which is called DG. They specifically look at startups, across, let's say, Series A, B, and even at seed level. So they look at startups across levels to see if there's opportunity for us to kind of work with them. The third thing we do is we work with financial sponsors, right, which could be private equity and VCs, to see if they have investments made in Series A or B, and see companies wherein we could kind of leverage and either give working capital facility, or like I mentioned earlier, right, give factoring facilities for folks who are even exporting, because some of these startups are not aware of what are the facilities that banks can provide them, which will enable them to grow. So again, our drive is not just providing financing, our drive is how we help them grow. And I think that's going to be the key agenda for us, even when we look at startups. So even though we have the DG as well as the funds allocated, but our key focus is how do we help the startup grow, right? How do we help them become a little more efficient? So I think a couple of these things working together really helps us kind of work far more efficiently compared to others in the space.
That's nicely put. We leave it there for the moment. Thank you so much, Mr. Dalal, for joining us here on The Breakfast Club.